The air in the hospital room was sterile, suffocating. Elena Rivera sat at her mother's bedside, the steady beep of machines pressing into her skull like a metronome counting down a future she could no longer afford. Marisol Rivera, pale and unconscious, was fighting late-stage renal failure. The doctors had said a transplant was possible, but the waiting list was long, and treatment in the meantime, agonizingly expensive. Elena's hands trembled as she folded the latest medical bill. It didn't matter that she worked 2 jobs. It didn't matter that she skipped meals to save money. Her family was drowning, and with her father gone, the burden to keep them afloat had fallen squarely on her. That was when the offer came. A man in a black suit approached her outside the hospital, flanked by 2 silent bodyguards. "Mr. Blackwood wishes to speak with you," he said, handing her a card. She recognized the name instantly, Damon Blackwood, the ruthless billionaire known for hostile takeovers and colder-than-steel eyes. She had served him coffee once at the cafe. He hadn't even looked up. Now he wanted to meet. The next evening, Elena sat across from Damon in a penthouse that overlooked the city like a king surveying his empire. He didn't waste time. "You marry me," he said, voice clipped and precise. "In return, I'll cover all your mother's treatments. Every debt gone." Elena stared at him, stunned. "Why would you?" "Don't mistake this for charity," Damon interrupted, eyes narrowing. "This is a contract. 2 years. No affection required, no expectations beyond appearances. You'll play the doting wife. In private, we live separate lives. In public, we play the part." It felt unreal, like stepping into a fairy tale where the prince had no heart. "But why me?" Damon leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "I need a wife. You need money. Let's not romanticize this." She should have walked away. But desperation breeds decisions that dignity cannot afford. That night she signed. The wedding was grand and cold, a spectacle of ice roses and champagne toasts. Elena wore a designer gown she hadn't picked. Cameras flashed as she smiled beside a man who refused to touch her hand. Damon didn't kiss her. Instead, he turned at the altar and whispered, "Try not to fall in love." The mansion he brought her to was silent, a modern fortress of marble and glass. Staff moved like shadows, avoiding her gaze. Damon vanished into his office for hours, sometimes days. He ate alone, slept in a room at the far end of the hall. Elena wandered its corridors like a ghost in a gilded cage. Her phone was monitored, her social accounts erased. The price of her mother's survival was isolation. Days turned to weeks. The silence grew louder. One night, as rain painted streaks across the tall windows, Elena stood alone in the vast dining room. Her fork scraped porcelain, echoing like a scream. She missed Liam. He had been her safe place, soft smiles, lazy Sunday mornings, the feeling of home. She'd broken up with him weeks before the wedding, giving him no explanation. The hurt in his eyes haunted her more than the mansion's emptiness. "I don't love you anymore," she'd said, her voice betraying the lie. He didn't fight. He just left. She hadn't heard from him since. Elena told herself it was better this way. Liam deserved someone whole. Someone who hadn't sold herself like a character in a tragedy. Late that night, she passed Damon's office door. It was slightly ajar. Inside, his voice was low, strained. "She's here now. That's all that matters," he said into the phone. "The rest, Jonathan will pay. I promise you that." Elena froze. Her breath caught. "Revenge," Damon whispered. She stepped back quietly, heart pounding. Her marriage wasn't just a transaction. Something else was at play. Something dark, rooted in secrets far deeper than bills and contracts. For the first time since signing her name, she felt fear. Not of the man she married, but of the mystery she'd walked into. She returned to her room, but sleep never came. And in the quiet hours before dawn, she realized something chilling. She might have just sold her soul to a man with a plan far more dangerous than she ever imagined. The morning after overhearing Damon's cryptic conversation, Elena wandered the mansion's library, a room she had never dared enter before. Dust cloaked the shelves like forgotten memories, and the air smelled faintly of old ink and secrets. She wasn't sure what she was searching for. Answers, perhaps, or simply a distraction from the chill that had taken root in her bones. But answers would not come so easily. In the days that followed, Damon's behavior changed. He was still distant, but not in the same way. He began joining her for breakfast, occasionally asking how she slept. His gaze lingered longer than before, as if he were trying to read a language written across her skin. One evening, he poured her a glass of wine without being asked. Another night, she caught him standing in the doorway of her room, saying nothing before silently turning away. It unsettled her more than his silence ever had. She didn't know what to make of it. The man who had once treated her like a pawn was now showing glimpses of something else, something almost human. But she didn't trust it. She couldn't. Not when the word revenge still echoed in her memory, like a warning. And then, as if fate couldn't resist deepening the conflict, Liam reappeared. It started with a message. Unmarked number. Just one line. Are you okay? Her hands trembled as she read it. She stared at the screen for a full minute before typing. I can't talk to you. She deleted it. Rewrote it. Deleted again. Then shut the phone off entirely. But the message burrowed into her heart, igniting something she'd tried to bury: desire, regret, and an ache for the man who had once made her feel seen. The next evening, as twilight bathed the estate in muted gold, Elena found herself in the garden. Somehow, he was there. Liam, leaning against the gate, as if drawn by some invisible thread. I had to see you, he said softly, eyes searching hers. I thought I could stay away. But you look different. Like something's breaking inside you. Elena didn't speak. She couldn't. His presence split her in two, the wife in name, and the woman she had been before all this. I never stopped loving you, he said. Tears blurred her vision. You should have, she whispered. I tried. The kiss came like lightning, sudden, electric, and soaked in all the emotion she had dammed up for weeks. It wasn't calculated. It wasn't careful. It was real. And when it ended, she stepped back, ashamed, afraid. I'm married, she said, her voice hollow. Not in your heart, he replied, brushing a thumb against her cheek. Not where it matters. But he was wrong. Her heart had become a war zone. That night, she returned to the mansion in silence. Damon wasn't in his office. Not in the dining room. Not in the library. He was waiting on the balcony outside her room, a whiskey glass in one hand, his face unreadable. Her heart stopped. How long has it been going on? He asked quietly, without turning. Elena's blood went cold. It was nothing. A mistake. He nodded, sipping his drink. You kissed him. She swallowed hard. I didn't plan it. I didn't mean to. I know. He turned to face her, his eyes colder than the wind. That makes it worse. The silence that followed was suffocating. You said this was just a contract, she finally said. No emotions. No expectations. I lied, Damon said. The words landed like thunder. Her breath caught. Why? She asked, almost afraid of the answer. He looked at her for a long moment. Because I didn't think I could feel anything. Not after everything that's happened. But then you showed up with your stubborn hope and broken dreams. And I hated that you made me want to care again. Elena didn't know what to say. You kissed him, Damon repeated, his voice softer now, almost tired. And I let you. Because I thought maybe you'd realize something on your own. He set the glass down and walked past her. I'll sleep in the guest wing, he said. We wouldn't want to complicate the contract further. The door shut behind him, leaving Elena in the silence of her own guilt. She stood motionless, the memory of Liam's lips still warm against hers, and yet, somehow, Damon's words cut deeper. She had broken something. Not the marriage. Something more fragile. Something real. The following days passed in a haze. Damon no longer spoke to her unless necessary. Their meals were quiet, formal, stripped of even the smallest pretense of connection. Elena felt like she was living with a stranger again, except now, she was the intruder. She replayed that night on a loop. Liam's kiss. Damon's voice. His confession. I lied. I didn't think I could feel anything. She had begged for something real, and when it finally stood in front of her, she had turned away. One afternoon, restless and suffocated, Elena wandered into the east wing of the mansion, a place she'd been told was off-limits. The doors creaked open with hesitation, revealing a study cloaked in dust and shadow. Books lined the walls untouched. In the center stood a locked cabinet with a broken latch. Curiosity urged her forward. Inside, she found old photographs, dozens of them. Some of Damon, some of a younger man who looked similar but softer, smiling. The back of one was labeled Jonathan, Boston, 2014. She dug deeper, uncovering letters, articles, financial statements, all connected to her family's collapse. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Her father's bankruptcy, the foreclosure, the sudden death of his business partner, all tied to Jonathan Blackwood, Damon's estranged brother. A shiver ran through her. Damon hadn't stumbled into her life by chance. He had known. He had seen her family fall, piece by piece, and watched from the shadows. She remembered his words on the phone. Jonathan will pay. This marriage wasn't revenge against her. It was protection. That night, unable to keep the truth caged inside her, she sought him out. Damon was in the greenhouse, pruning roses by moonlight, as if the act of tending something fragile grounded him. You knew, she said quietly, about my family, about what Jonathan did. He didn't look up. I've known for years. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? He asked, finally meeting her gaze. You already thought the worst of me. I still don't understand. Why marry me? Why not just help us? A bitter smile touched his lips. Because you wouldn't have taken it. Not without asking why. And I couldn't answer without telling you about Jonathan. About the kind of filth my bloodline shares. He set the clippers down. When I saw you working that cafe shift, head held high even when your world was crumbling, I didn't see a victim. I saw a fighter. Someone worth protecting. Even from a distance. The truth, spoken aloud, shattered something inside her. You could have told me the truth from the start, she said, voice shaking. And you could have told me you still loved someone else, he answered calmly. Guilt flooded her again. I ended it. With Liam. Damon gave a slow nod, as if confirming something he already knew. But the damage is done. I'm sorry, she whispered. He stepped closer, close enough for her to see the storm in his eyes. So am I. A long silence passed between them, thick with the weight of everything they hadn't said. I don't want this to end like this, she said. He tilted his head. You think we had a beginning? She reached for him, but he gently stepped back. I'm leaving, he said. The contract is void. Don't do this, Elena said, heart racing. You can't just. I'm not punishing you, Damon interrupted. I'm setting you free. That was always the deal, wasn't it? You gave up your freedom to save your family. Now I'm giving it back. Her eyes burned. You're not giving me anything I want. He looked at her for a long moment, the silence between them deafening. You'll forget me, he said softly. But I won't forget you. He turned and walked away, and this time, she didn't stop him. She couldn't. She collapsed to her knees as the door closed behind him, grief crashing through her like a tidal wave. She had gotten everything she wanted, her mother safe, her debts cleared. And yet, she had never felt so hollow. Later that night, alone in her room, she felt a strange dizziness. Her hands trembled. She checked the calendar. Then again. A sick realization struck her like ice. She was late. Her breath hitched as she staggered to the bathroom and reached for a forgotten pregnancy test hidden in her drawer. Minutes passed. 1 line. Then 2. She stared at the result, heart pounding, tears spilling unchecked. She wasn't alone. Somewhere, far above the clouds in a private jet, Damon stared out the window, Elena's photo still tucked in the inside pocket of his jacket. He whispered to himself, I gave her everything. Maybe that was the mistake.